Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Jimmy Hills. I am the host of Java with Jimmy, and also I am excited to be here today for GBH Amplifies. James Jimmy Hills, host of Java with Jimmy. As I often say on my morning show, I can talk this morning. I don't have my Java here with me. That usually helps. We're here this morning, and I'm excited to have my guest here. I will say it's been years in the making of getting this wonderful Black queen who has a responsibility, has still, but has worked in the space of having a responsibility to shape messaging and also marketing, and just, I call her a communications maven, and she really is. And so I'm excited today to have Jessicah Pierre here with us. I'm going to kind of do the introduction a little bit more again, but I do want to acknowledge that we do have a live audience here in the News Cafe BPL studio here, and so I want to thank all of you all for being here this afternoon with us today. And getting back to my guest, I am really excited. I can't express enough how excited I am, because we're going to hear about her journey. If I'm correct, this is a little bit of an exclusive. I'm not sure how many folks that she sat with and no one can have a conversation with her like I can. Maybe Janae Osterheld and a couple of other people, and she's actually had some conversations with her. And so please put your hands together for the communications maven, the Black queen, the wonderful Jessicah Pierre. Put your hands together for her.
Thank you so much, James.
I am excited, and I joke about the fact of it's taken years. You are busy. You also are professional and have transitioned from being on what we call the outside, and you went on the inside in government. And communications in government is very, very different. Even as an individual, it is. You're 24/7, whether you like it or not, and not necessarily a requirement of the mayor, but just the nature of things. And so let's back up. Please say hello to the audience here in person, and then your camera, I think, is right there, and say hello to the people that are watching as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Let's chat. Let's talk.
Okay, so we're going to jump right in. And so I became familiar with you at your time with Beckma, and that's where I could easily pick up. But I want to go back. I want to know, who is Jessicah? Have you all, as I'm thinking about it in real time, have you always had the ability to help people shape their messaging? There is a level of advocacy that comes with helping people shape their message, because you have to know what they want to do and what they want to convey. And so take us back to from the time you got home from the hospital until the mayor called you.
Time I got home from the hospital? Well, October 4th, 1991, I was born at Boston City
1991?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
that's the year after I
with
graduated from high school.
Okay, because sometimes people are like, oh my God, that's so long ago. And sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, you're a baby. So I didn't know what.
I won't say you're a baby, but 91, Jessicah?
Yes, I'm 34 years old.
Okay, go ahead.
But, who I am before any titles or anything, I think I was always someone who just had a lot of empathy for people. I had a very interesting childhood, a mixture of traumatic moments and also a mixture of being surrounded by community to support me and love me. And so I always wanted to share that love that I received at home and with my community, with other people as well too. And so I always had a heart for service, always had a heart for helping people. My mom, when I was younger, used to always say I was going to be a lawyer because she felt like I was always defending someone or defending a thought or advocating for justice. So that's a foundation.
So I was not thinking amiss when I said that though you're in communications, and it is a mixture of knowing you, but in that field, you do not, based on the subject we're talking about, I was getting ready to say you're not in communications and do not have a heart, but we're going to save that for later, because communications has changed, and we're seeing in real time that there are people that know how to communicate that don't necessarily have a heart. They're advocating. And I will be fair and say that we may not agree, but technically they are advocating for a position. We don't like it. So, all right. So sitting here, and we may have talked about this in the past, being 20 years your senior is interesting to me as someone that is, I won't say a novice, certainly not an expert, but in the communications field of the last 5 to 6 years. You don't present as someone that is 20 years anybody's senior or younger than them. You carry yourself in a manner that is professional, authentic, and real, with love. A couple of times in my advocacy moments, you had to call and hey, Jimmy. With the childhood, with the trauma that you mentioned and the healing, where was the transition for you that you said, okay, let me back up a little bit. Did you do anything else before being in communications? Did you try other things? What were the teen jobs like? And then we're going to get to what was the transition when you said, hey, I know what I'm doing and I can help somebody else convey their message.
So interestingly enough, when I was a teenager, when I was younger, I was really into music and performing. I used to sing, I used to do musicals a lot. So I think that's where I got the confidence of being able to feel comfortable public speaking and engaging with a broader audience. It was really performing when I was younger. Okay. And I remember when I was trying to go to high school, I told my dad I wanted to go to the Boston Arts Academy, but he was like, absolutely not. You need to focus on academics.
Oh, yes.
He was like, absolutely not. So I ended up at Brighton High School and, was a part of the drama club there. We would get together and put on talent shows and cultural shows because I always had a heart for music and performing ever since I was younger. But I knew I wasn't going to be a professional performer for my career because my dad really put the emphasis on academics.
Can I ask you, you're of Haitian descent. We're going to talk a little bit about things, but I always joke with my Haitian brothers and sisters. What are the 3 things? Is church, school, what is it, church?
It's l'école, la caille, l'église, church, school, home.
A friend of ours, Brianna Millar, is in the audience, and I had to smile at her because
Shout out Brianna.
We definitely, that's something that I often hear. And so you had to focus on academics, but you kept the knack for the arts. That gave you the confidence. When was the transition to comms? And when we say comms, everyone, it's just saying, communications. We say that often. I'll text somebody, what do you do? Oh, I'm in comms. And they're like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
But when was the transition for you that you knew this was a career, and then maybe not so much the entrepreneurship full-time? Did you have any entry time into communications?
So when I got to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I had a heart to help people. So naturally, I applied to college under the degree of psychology because I thought I was going to be a counselor or a psychiatrist or something of that sort. And then I took my first Psych 100 class, and I was like, absolutely not. This is not it.
Do you regret it based on the last years of few?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I do not regret it at all. Science is not my portion. I quickly realized
not
that.
Your ministry.
Yeah, that was not the right path. So then I just ended up trying a bunch of different classes when I was in college. You get to take all these general education classes. And I tried econ, I tried comms, and comms didn't work out either. I took 2 comms classes, and I was like, okay, I don't think communications is it.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I'm okay. We have to hold on. We got to hear the journey, but I'm anxious to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, that's not it. And then I took my first political science class. And I was like, okay, I get this. I was like, I like this. I feel good about it. I'm getting good grades in it. So I'm just going to declare my major in political science, and we'll see what happens. Because I think when I went to school, my goal was to get a degree because I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. I had other cousins that went to college, siblings that went to college but didn't necessarily graduate. So my goal was to graduate. So I knew I just had to major in something that I would be able to get the grades to be able to graduate. And I wasn't necessarily thinking about what my career was going to be post-college. So step by step. But I also had an interest in politics very young as well too, because in my Haitian family that I grew up in, politics is always discussed in the in the household, and everyone is deeply passionate about their thoughts around politics. So I grew up listening to my dad debate my uncles, my grandmother debate my aunts about different political issues, whether it was political topics in Haiti or in America. CNN was always on, MSNBC, the news. I was very young, and the first thing I would do in the morning when I was getting ready for school is turn on the news. The radio was always on, so that is how I knew, okay, I have an interest in this, and I know it gets people excited. I know people can be very passionate about it, so I was like, let me pursue this topic and see where it takes me.
So we're going to go into those like full circle moments. So if I remember right, because there's so much, I can go 11 ways with this. You said your major was in political science?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're going to get to, we understand political science. You didn't like or pass, you didn't like the comms classes.
I passed, but I wasn't super interested, and I didn't felt like I got the best grade that I knew I could get.
But you got them in political science?
Yes.
Okay, now, entrepreneur. I said I met you when you were with BECMA, and though you were working for them, I believe it was, you were advising, consulting, whatever. When did you know that this is something that you could do, and I'll keep it simple, that could pay your bills?
Okay, so
did it pay the bills? Because I know as entrepreneurs, we're like, bruh, the bills got paid, but no. Go
at some point.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
at some point we got there. But so just to tie the bow on the comms portion.
Yes.
So while I was in college, I was majoring in political science, but I also was a part of a number of different student organizations.
Okay, yep.
And we would put different events on campus. Social media was starting to come up, so we were finding unique ways to market the events and the programming that we were putting on. And when I was a junior in college, I ended up being the public relations officer for the Haitian American Student Association at UMass Amherst. And so my job was to come up with creative PR campaigns to get people to come to our events, and we were really trying to be intentional about engaging with students that were not of Haitian descent so that they could learn more about our culture. So we had to think outside the box, and that's when I was like, this PR stuff sounds really fun, and I think I'm really good at it. So even though I was majoring in political science, I started doing internships in communications and PR over the summers while I was, had different semesters at school. And then I started to research, how can I combine political science with PR, and then press secretary came up. So I was like, I'm gonna be a press secretary. So that's how it all came together.
But there was a little bit between press secretary. You had
I did not become a press secretary right away, but that is how I knew I had a goal of what I was looking to do, what I was looking to achieve.
So that became your goal, but along the way, to pay the bills until you got there, you have advised a lot of entities and people around shaping their message. We're going to shift a little bit, and we're going to talk about where things are now, and also if I have you here, so I'm going to take full advantage of somebody that's watching. Social media is, as you said, it was starting, then it was interesting because just here the other night, you said social media was starting, and then we were talking about, is there going to be a hashtag? And you turned to the younger crew, and you were like, yo, are we using, so that
a lot has changed.
A lot has changed. We're going to, and that's going to be a good transition to get, kind of your observations and advice of where we are now. Shaping messaging, Jessicah, what would be 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would give anyone, an entrepreneur, a potential, we move in the space of electoral politics, someone is thinking about being an elected official? You talked about what you did in college, the grandmother, that wants to get out information about her quilting or crocheting group. What are 3, I upped it, what are 3 essential pieces of advice that you would give to people when they're shaping their message?
So I think the first thing is to always figure out, who are you talking to? Who's your target audience? I think when you're first starting out creating a message, you are thinking, I want to reach as many people as possible. And that's great as an overarching goal, but when you try to talk to everyone, most of the times you end up talking to no one, because you're not being intentional about who you're trying to target. Because intentionality doesn't mean that you're going to reach less people. It means that you're going to reach the right people. And people
say that again for the people in the back.
Intentionality doesn't mean that you're going to reach less people. It means that you're going to reach the right people.
Okay.
And so you have to focus on who am I trying to talk to. So back then, when I used to advise my
said
clients,
back then?
yeah, back then it was quite a while ago. A lot happened since
Yes,
then.
yes.
When I used to advise my clients around marketing, I always used to spend a lot of time with them figuring out what exactly their target audience is. And I used to tell them, like, we're going to name this person. We're going to think about one individual. We're going to give them a name. We're going to talk about what their characteristics are. What do they do? What grabs their attention? What activities are they involved in? Who are they following? What messaging do we think is going to resonate with them the most? And so getting very specific about who you're going to talk to is crucial.
Okay.
And then you want to think about, okay, when this person hears my message, what exactly do we want them to do? What kind of action, what call to action do we want them to hear? What do we want them to subscribe? Do we want them to engage? Do we want them to just hear? Do we want them to tell their friends? So we have to be intentional about what the call to action is in the message. And then also we have to think about what the core messaging is. You can't say everything. Like, people are not going to know what you're saying if you're just saying a lot. So you have to think about what your core messaging is and then how you can constantly repeat that core message, because repetition is what matters when it comes to communicating, because the only way people will be able to really understand your message is if they hear it pretty often. So those are some of the 3 things I would consider first off.
So first for review, target your audience, and the second one was
What do we want them to do?
what we want them to do, the call to action. Interestingly, so people usually leave that last. And so as you were saying that's the second one, I found that interesting. I'm taking notes myself. And then the third one
It's a core message.
The core message. Okay, so that's why you say to do the second one. And then the core message is moving people to action, James. Okay, and then the third one is repetition, which could be a good transition into, what we see now. We know that where things are in our political governing climate, we know that one of the personalities in this space is a good marketing person and is constantly being repetitious, but we'll save a little bit of that.
Yeah, he knows how to play the game.
Absolutely, which is a whole nother conversation, a little bit of part of what we'll have today. And so you gave the advice for the clients, and you achieved, we're going to talk about you achieving the goal of being the press secretary. What was it like when you got the call from Mayor Michelle Wu to shape her messaging in a time that we were dealing with COVID? She was the first elected woman of color. That, I'm sure you were touched by COVID. You're a woman of color. What was that like? And because that was the achievement and let's be, no disrespect to press secretaries, but you were that and more. You were the director of communications. Just give us a couple of seconds of what was that call like?
So interestingly enough, when I was navigating my career as a communications professional and I was looking for work, and I can't remember what year this was. Maybe
you said way back, and then I can't remember what year this was.
Maybe I'm going to mess with you. Maybe it was 2011. Was it 2000? No, it wasn't. It wasn't 2011. Maybe it was 2016 or 2017.
Okay.
2017. I was looking for work, and I saw that Counselor Wu was looking for a director of communications, and I was a huge fan of her work. And it was because of her advocacy and all of her agenda as a city councilor, her progressive agenda, but it was also because of who she was as a person.
Okay.
So back then, when I graduated from college and I came back home to Boston to work in the communications field, I started off as like a part-time co-op, college graduate working as a part-time co-op for a local nonprofit organization. So I had 2 jobs at the time because, the co-op was 20 hours a week, but I just knew I needed to get my foot in the door.
Okay.
And I was still at home with my family, so I could afford, not making as much money and just getting my foot in the door. I remember being in Boston politics, it was very different at the time. There was just not a lot of representation in terms of people of color, in terms of women. It was just a completely different time back then. And I remember we hosted a fundraiser where Michelle Wu had just got elected as city councilor that year, and she was our keynote speaker. And as someone who was working as a co-op and in these event spaces, I was just kind of used to being in the background, doing my own thing, helping out where I could. And I remember she said hi to me at one point at the event. And I was just like, me.
Hi.
And I was like, wow, like you see me, because I was just so used to just being in the background and not necessarily being a part of the social aspect of these events, just checking people in, minding my business, you know, doing what I have to
Low-key,
do.
as you still sort of are.
Yeah.
Yep.
So from then I was like, wow, like this woman is so kind. She took time out of her day just to say hi to me as someone who's just like a co-op, just like helping out. So from then I was just like interested in her as a young woman who was elected in office. And also shout out to Congresswoman Presley as well too.
Absolutely.
When she was a city councilor, she was also one of those people that always made it a point to give me a big hug and share encouragement, even though I was so young into my career.
You think they saw the potential in you
I think so.
with that? And then not just they have to see that to say hello, but did you think that there was something that they saw that?
I think so. And I think it's just a testament to who they are. It doesn't matter who you are. They're going to make sure that you feel acknowledged as
Yep.
a human being. They're going to acknowledge your presence in the space, because they might not know exactly what you're doing, but they know you're doing something
Okay.
to contribute
Yep,
to the
and
space.
you're there. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it was so helpful to have leaders like that who could just be kind. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Kindness. Underrated.
Kindness and leadership.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Again,
Yes.
full transparency over these years, Jessicah and I have got close. So we're friends, and so I'm kindness in leadership is key and important, and we'll leave that there.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Bring it back. Bring back
Bring it
kindness.
back. Bring it back. I'm bringing it back. What I want to bring it back to though is it for you. As I said before, you started working with the mayor right before maybe COVID hit. She was the first person I actually heard. People were saying Corona or whatever, and
Yeah,
I went
she-
to a hearing.
yeah.
She was one of the first people that I
Yeah.
ever heard say COVID-19.
Yeah.
It was at the
Yeah.
the city council hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, things transitioned, and we are now in a time, Jessicah, where it was already interesting helping shape, and you were the director of communications for the mayor's office. So that wasn't just the press secretary, that is social media, that's marketing and things like that. We are now in a time where people who are standing up for equity, being a woman of color, Asian, shaping
A mom.
messaging, a mom, but prior, well, she was already a mom. That's right. The mayor gets so much attention, we sometimes forget about the boys. Did you see her ponytails the other day? I was like,
She's
oh,
so
she
cute.
looks so cute. When the shift happened, when we moved away from the kindness and leadership, what was that like for you? Because you have to balance, and let's just name this. You were two women that are shaping messaging and standing up to the lack of kindness and leadership. What was that like in this world and in this time?
Well, I'll just say that lack of kindness and leadership is not new. It's not new. We're
Right.
definitely in a different time where it is just more visible.
And we're gonna go
because
there.
of-
Yep, we're gonna
because
go
of the
there.
current
Yep.
media landscape that we're in right now. But I will say, I want to just go back to what I was saying for 2017 when I applied to
Yes.
work for Mayor Wu as her director of communications as a city councilor. I didn't end up getting the job, but I went and no hard feelings. I
Yep.
found another great job and ended up really honing in on my skills when it came to PR, and then ended up starting my own consulting, ended up really just like growing and developing. And then 3 years later, 2020, it was February 2020. Actually, it was January 2020 because it was at the MLK breakfast. The mayor and Brianna had invited me to come to the breakfast in January of 2020. And I remember she asked me, she said, so what are you up to now? And I was like, well, actually, I'm transitioning out of my role and going to focus on consulting full time. And so in February 2020, that's when I started working with her as a consultant. And I was, a part-time director of comms for her while she was a city councilor. And that is when COVID started to happen.
Yes.
And, I do remember we did a series of Facebook Live conversations because people weren't able to come together. And she was one of the first people that had like a scientist that knew infectious diseases and knew a lot about pandemics come on her Facebook Live and be able to share a scientific perspective
Hold
on what
on.
was happening.
Michelle, you used to do Facebook Lives around COVID?
Yes. We had a Facebook Live. You can go on her
No. I'm
OG
just saying,
Facebook
in all
page.
these years, and
Yeah.
I've never correlated that she did that, and then we. Go ahead.
So when you said that she was the first one to say COVID-19 on the city council hearing, it's because of that conversation and that relationship that she had with that scientist.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's when we really started to think like, wow, things are going to get pretty scary very fast.
Okay.
And they
did.
Get,
Indeed did.
March 2020, everything
Yes.
shut down. We're
Yep.
all home.
And that's when somebody else went live because of COVID. And so I never correlated she was doing that, and then when I did it, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we used to do them every week. We tried to have as many different conversations. Because I think during COVID, we were just thinking about how we can keep people connected.
Yep.
I remember we did like a stay-at-home challenge where every day we were on social media, we were encouraging people to do different activities. So it was Takeout Tuesday to support local restaurants. We had like Yoga Fridays where we were encouraging everybody to just move their body. So we were just thinking about different ways to just engage with people virtually and make sure that people didn't feel alone during that time. So I think during 2020, a lot of people had that perspective, like how can we continue to build community? How can we support our neighbors? You know, everyone was involved, all hands on deck, getting
Yep.
groceries to their neighbors that
Our
couldn't go outside,
seniors.
getting masks and protective gear to everybody, showing love to our healthcare workers. I think during that time, we were really in a space where we knew we're all in this together, and we're all gonna, support each other and be there for one another as much as possible because it was just such a scary time. And I think the shift started to happen a little bit around the time when the conversations around the vaccine happened, and there was a lot of various views around the vaccine and how to go about things happening, and people were tired of everything being shut down. So I think after she was elected as mayor, her historic
I was going to say that was what she inherited.
Yeah, that was a
lot.
moment where you had to make some tough public health decisions as the executive of the city. How can we keep our residents safe? And there were just some people that didn't agree with her the decisions that she made, and I think that's where we started to see some
Interesting lack of kindness. Let me ask you this. Do you think, because when we're in the second tier of lack of kindness and leadership, I had said it was comparable to COVID. But I felt the responsibility, and this is, we can get into some accuracy in social media, how the importance. When that second tier or term of lack of kindness and leadership, I almost felt that I had the same level of responsibility the first day I went live when the governor said, as you mentioned, March 24th, that we had to stay home. Do you feel that urgency was a training ground to some extent? Crisis management is a part of comms. I know a little bit. Do you feel that was a training ground for what you had to help shape in these times of lack of kindness, when, as a woman, being of Asian descent and not a white male, that you're now shaping message that also includes validating who not just she is and who you are, but as you talked about what she did in COVID for the city, Boston is a city for, was that your doing? Boston's a city for all? No, I'm messing.
No.
But you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying
Yeah.
that it's you know where I'm going, that COVID had that impact, and now we have this huge lack of kindness. Did you see that as a training ground to be able to handle, I'll bring it to the crisis management, but still keeping the humanity of what she had to convey?
Well, I think COVID exposed a deeper knowledge that we all had around disparities, racial disparities,
Absolutely.
income disparities. So I think there was a lot of conversations talking about who's impacted the most by COVID. And then when we're thinking about providing aid and support, how can we make sure that we're reaching communities that need it the most? And that was, like you said, I used to work for BECMA as well too. And so they were also doing a lot of work to mobilize and make sure that Black businesses, the Black community had the support that they need to get through this very tough time. But I also want to touch on kind of like the national background of what was happening at that time as well too, because 2016 is where on a national level things really started to shift.
So there was still, there was and I refer to, tier 2 or term 2 of lack of kindness. And so, there was term 1. So you already had some context of what, I think where I want to be, you're in communication, so let me just be specific. Did what you have to do in COVID help the mayor be clear in messaging about where Boston is, where we stand, what we will stand for, what we will not allow? What was it? 10 Toes Down? that got a little popular. Did that help?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it helped to really define her agenda when she was.
The
mayor.
skill set that you needed to advise.
Yeah, you had to get creative to reach people. When she first launched her first campaign, people were still wearing masks. We weren't able to have a big campaign launch event because people couldn't be together in big groups. So we had to think about different creative ways to reach people. We had to think about how we're going to reach non-English speaking people, think about how we're going to reach different constituencies, engage different cultures in the city, and acknowledge everything that Boston is and how we wanted to tap into that.
So that all Boston is for all was something that's been a paramount thing all along. As we're talking and transitioning into any advice or your observations, COVID, term 2 of lack of kindness, social media, Jessicah, we as humans have the ability to use social media for good and then also for not good. This is deep into it, and we're almost done in a few minutes. Describe the state of the impact of social media on humanity in one word.
Complicated.
That is not fair.
It's complicated. You know what? I'll tell you why. Because before yesterday, I knew I was going to come on the show. I knew we were going to talk about social media. I was getting ready to talk about, how toxic it is, and recognizing how a lot of tech and social media execs don't even allow their children to have phones because they don't even want them to be exposed to the things that they're creating. But then yesterday happened. We saw what happened in Minneapolis, and if it wasn't for people recording what happened and social media being a platform where people could share what actually happened, the truth would not have been exposed, because we've seen what the statement that the White House put out in terms of what happened, trying to distort what we all saw with our eyes.
Right. Yep.
So now I'm in a space where I'm just like, if it wasn't for social media, we would not have been able to know the truth of what happened. So that's why I know complicated is like a blanket term, and we can unpack it in any which way direction, but I was coming in here ready to be like, social media is bad, it's evil.
And that is factual to some extent.
There's so much good that can come from it as well too. So that's why I'm going to say complicated. I'm going to stick to that word, sorry.
Well, no, you're good. We're going to unpack that a little bit. So we're going to end with the good. Let's talk about a little bit for a couple of seconds. Coming up in my time, and I'm sure you saw it too, one of the negative stereotypes of social media was how it portrayed black women. Where are we with that?
Well, there's AI has made things extremely...
Your thoughts on AI as you're responding to that as well?
Well, like social media, AI is also very complicated as well too. I think we need regulations around how people use it, because the stuff that I see on social media now, and I think when it comes to social media, overall, I think people think that we're in a battle about free speech. People want the opportunity to hold on to their right for free speech, say whatever's on their mind, say what they have to say. But I don't think that we're in a battle of free speech. I think we're in a battle of access to critical thinking. Because social media presents people's opinions, and there's not a lot of fact-checking or debunking, or you're just constantly exposed to opinions. There's not a lot of room for conversations around critical thinking, or we're not teaching people how to critical think when they see different types of content online. We're not teaching people to pause and say, what is the source of this? Where did this information come from? This is an opinion. It doesn't necessarily mean it's fact. Exactly. Just because they have a lot of followers doesn't mean that it's accurate information. So I think we need to do a lot more education around media literacy if this is actually going to be something that it is something that we're going to engage. It's a $1 billion industry, and we're in a capitalistic society, and money runs all things, but we have to teach people how
rules. What is it?
Everything around me.
Familiar song that we heard a couple of days after a recent event. All right, so that is sort of on the bad side. Let's talk about the informative side. Who was it? Gambino, with the phone in the video, and he held up the phone and said, "Tool." That's what you were saying about Minneapolis, right? Social media and our phones can be a tool. What advice would you give, and I'm going to ask you to speak to young people. What advice would you give to young people, as you were saying a few minutes ago, keep your authentic voice, free speech, all of that, be who you are. Where is the balance for them? Because I really believe, Jessicah, that with what our young people are seeing now, my hope is that the humanity in them, movements and change always are driven by young people. Where's the balance for them for being real? They do their little stuff and dances and on the, I'm going to sound real old now, on the TikTok, on the bookgram and all that stuff. No, I mean, I know what that stuff is. Where's the balance of being them and having a responsibility to themselves? Where is that for our young people in the context of social media today?
I think I would say that there are consequences to what you post. They could be good consequences or they could be negative consequences. And I think sometimes you have to pause and think through what those consequences are. I know back then when I was younger and we didn't know what the impact of social media was going to be. You know, I had a Facebook my senior year of high school, and then there was Twitter when I was in college, and then there was Snapchat and all these things. And I thought I was just like posting to a black hole, or just like my friends were seeing it, or like I didn't know I was creating a digital footprint at the time that
when you
people
get in a
could refer
position
to.
like yours, they're going to troll.
Or any position.
Okay,
you're looking
fair.
for
Yes,
a job,
yes.
and
Yep.
you know, employers are Googling you and your digital footprint is coming up. So I think we need to educate our young people on the digital footprint that they're creating and the digital portfolio that they're creating as well too, and teach them how to be intentional about how to show their authentic selves online without necessarily compromising who they are, but also understanding that there's consequences to what they post. Because right now the culture online is, because you're behind a screen or a computer, nobody knows who you are. So you can say whatever you want. No one's gonna come and attack you physically. No one's gonna hold you accountable in a way that they would have held you accountable if you were in person having this conversation and you were, you know, spewing hate at me or like saying things that are inappropriate. But people need to understand that there's still consequences to posting that online.
And it's a possibility, just saying the worst case scenario, that people can IP addresses, they can track you down.
They can find you, yeah.
They'll see you
They can
outside,
find
as they
you.
say.
It's a very scary,
Excuse me.
complicated world, and I think we have to have more conversations about it. You know, I would love to create a curriculum around media literacy for young people.
When I create a curriculum,
so if there are any researchers out there that would love to do some research around this and help me create this curriculum, any teachers out there, because I think it starts very young. You know, how old was I when I had my first cell phone? I don't remember, but it didn't have internet or anything of that sort. But now kids are very young, having access to the world in their hands. And so we need to, you know, parents can do their best to implement measures and like try to create parameters on what young people have access to.
Monitor their phones electronically and all that.
Right, but kids are so smart. They do this for fun. They play in tech for fun. Like they can find ways around things. So I think it's just creating that environment for honest conversation and talking about what those consequences could look like, and then also talking about how we could use social media for good. How we can build community, how we can bring people together, how we can do storytelling in a way that inspires people, how you can drive change online as well too. So there's a scary part, but there's also the really positive part as well too, and just equipping our young people with those tools so that they can continue to use them. And they are driving change online, but just making sure that more people have access and knowing that they can drive change as well too.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to end with that good piece, and I talked about the reference to tool in the video, because I just really believe that our young people are going to be the ones that bring kindness back into leadership, you know, if you will. We're going to get ready to wrap up in a few minutes, but I want to ask you, a resource for you. We have to ask Sheena, but there's a young man that she had at the Boston While Black Summit that actually, I believe, is at a doctorate level of digital community, social media, like a whole workshop on it. So remind me to hook you two up for that. One of the things that we were able to accomplish, and the reason that the mayor comes on the show once a month now was, and these are one of the platforms, I had saw the mayor on a couple of platforms consistently. I reached out to Jessicah and I said, hey, Mayor Wu's on, you know, the other platforms, and COVID was still, we were still at the end. She got elected November of 21.
2021, yeah.
And we were still on the end of Deltacron, I believe. And so COVID was still, so, you know, won the mayor, but now what you're doing coming in. And it was a no-brainer for you. Like, literally within a few seconds, you was like, I got to double check with her, but I get it. Because I had presented as a community media platform. So I want to thank you for that. You've made so many changes in this city, I believe, for Black and brown media. I started here with Danielle, Marv, and Courtney. Before I ask what's next for you, where do you see the impact of social media going for the good, and how and why should electeds, corporations, municipalities, whatever, invest and support Black, brown, women-owned, the marginalized populations media? Why is that so important?
I mean, we've seen a disruption in the media landscape. You know, typically if people want to get their latest news, they could turn on the TV, grab their local paper, and figure out what's happening. But with social media, we've seen the rise of more community-based platforms and influencers, content creators, and people are really engaging with that level of content more than they're engaging with some of our more institutionalized forms of media, to the point where a lot of our legacy media platforms are now figuring out how to tap into that content creator platform, how to, you know, transform their articles into more digital storytelling and content, et cetera. And so I think if you are not acknowledging that shift in the media, you are doing communications wrong. And also, if you want to be intentional about reaching audiences that may not necessarily have time to grab their local paper, or may want to learn more than what's happening on their local news channel, then you need to be engaging with content creators. You need to be engaging with people that know the internet very well, that know how to tell storytelling online, and engaging with them and showing the respect that they deserve for the platforms that they have been able to build. People like you, other local influencers as well too, that are really portraying the accurate stories. You don't have an editor that is telling you how to tell the story. You are telling the story based off of your experience. And a lot of people share a similar experience in you, and that experience historically has not been portrayed accurately in the media, especially for Black and brown people. The way that the media has portrayed us as people hasn't always been accurate to who we are as people. So when we are empowering local Black and brown creators and content creators to tell their stories, when we're giving them access to elected officials or other community leaders, and bringing on different audiences to their platforms as well too, we're not only investing in them as creators, but we're investing back in our people and equity across media as well too.
And I will say that, you know, you're not a person that just gets up here and articulates. And I'm listening to you, and I just had the thought, there's a few pieces out of here when this airs that this can be kind of qualified as a master class. Like, I don't think people realize the gravity of what you've had to handle. We didn't talk a lot about politics and all of that. We talked about humanity and equity. As you're transitioning, and we didn't get into it, wonderful job with what happened here a few nights ago. You oversaw the inauguration and everything with that. Jessicah, you shaped messaging on a world stage for the city of Boston, what is a world-class gateway city, in a time where people that live in this city's identities, ability to gain wealth, maintain, is compromised. There's a master classness that when you broke that, because there was a couple of times I was going to say, Jessicah, you got to go back and break that down a little bit more, and say it slower. There was a master classness that we got from you today. I'm going to allow you to just share some things about what's next for you. You know, the mayor often sometimes gives us a heads up on some things that were happening with the city. So, you know, we love to do that. What's next for you? If there's anything coming up, and then we're going to get ready to wrap up. But I'm sitting here and I'm looking at you, and I love you and I appreciate you. And as a professional, and yes, personally, your values of what I observe, but has the gravity of who you are and what you've done settled in?
So, this week was very busy, and it's been a busy holiday season. So,
No,
I don't think so, because whenever you accomplish something, there was always like the next thing waiting right there. So there wasn't a lot of time for like reflection while I was in it. So in terms of what's next for me, I'm looking forward to getting some sleep.
Okay.
And
Yes.
I'm looking forward to just sitting in it and taking some time to reflect and understand everything that happened, and also taking some time to think about how I want to position myself to continue to be impactful in what's happening with this city, because I love this city so much. So whether I'm working in the mayor's office or not, I'm always going to be interested in being involved on how we can move our city forward, and to what capacity is next, I'm not sure, but I want to rest. I want to take some time to rest, rejuvenate, reflect, relax, spend time with family and my loved ones, and we'll see what comes from that.
I will say that, and you put it on social media, so we'll say it here. You're coming into this year as a engaged woman, and getting ready to transition. And so I really appreciate you spending the time with us. One very last question: will you ever need to hire your own press secretary? Will you ever run for office, Jessicah? Yes or no?
No.
Never?
Never.
We won't have to run this back when you get elected?
No. It's a no.
Okay.
There are people who I will continue to support, who I think will do an excellent job. And I think my goal and purpose in life is to support people, not to be the face of change in that way. But I'll always be in the background supporting people that are values aligned.
But you are technically the face of change.
No.
What I mean by that is you put, just like the makeup artists and whatnot, you slap on the message of those faces of change. Jessicah, thank you so much for being with us today. Everyone, please give Jessicah a hand.
Thank you all so much.
As this is the first month, I don't have coffee, and that's why I can't talk today. As this is the first month of the year, we typically focus on a new year and new you. We did not do that today. However, there are elements and pieces of what Jessicah said that we just want to encourage you to remember as a part of the new year, the new you, and as you're evolving and making plans for this year, to pay attention to social media. Parents, ensure that you have conversations with your children, not just about social media, but what they're engaging with and what they see you engage with at home. The last thing I will say is it is imperative in these times, as my guest said, that we are in a very interesting time of a huge lack of kindness, not just on social media, but just in person. When you see people, greet them, say hello to them, check in with them, and then on social media, portray sort of that same commitment to humanity. And even when you have to be real and practice tough love or love someone from a distance, the foundation of that is in love. And so thank you for being with us today. We will be back on the first Thursday in February, and I don't have the exact date right now. And also know that every Thursday here at the GBH Library, there is the GBH Amplifies, the Bay State banner. Also, I am drawing a huge blank right now, but every Thursday you can come here and engage with community of voices. And February 5th will be our next episode here at 12:30 p.m. So thank you to the staff. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the guests that came today, even the ones that drove down from Worcester and didn't tell me that they were coming. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.